I'm Rebecca Bales, and I am the U.S. partner for a global learning and development company called Lumina Learning. And it's headquartered out of London, and I run the U.S. business for that organization. My official title is Partner the Americas, and my role is actually to certify and educate and support people who are using our tools and our services in either their corporate world or in their personal life skill and life coaching world to help individuals find themselves, become higher levels of self-awareness for leadership, for personal use, and for sales. Originally, I was educated to be a teacher, and I taught psychology. That was my teaching field. And then when I transitioned into the business world, I saw a real application for some of the assessment tools and things that we had used in psychology and that I already knew of, and that I realized corporations were using them to help develop their people. So it was a very seamless transition for me, even though they're really two different worlds. But it was all about education and all about helping the individuals become more effective. I did. I actually had my own business, and I had lots of corporate clients, and I flew all over the world delivering to them, educating them, writing programs for them specifically, and using different tools. And I migrated to the latest and the greatest based upon market research, where things were going. Just like we continually buy new cell phones and update our processes, we have to do that with our tools as well, because they're constantly being updated. And that's how I came across Lumina, and I've been with them now for 5 years. Well, what inspired me to go into this field and to be in a learning atmosphere, honestly, I always had a need and a love for psychology and the evolution of the individual and personality that just really intrigued me. And before I left teaching, I had a complete life transformation myself, and I had to remake who I was. And with that process, I realized I really didn't know who I was and what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to be with my life. And I think we all go through periods of exploration in that. You know, many of us have degrees in one thing, and yet we're out there doing another. So it's kind of like we get out there and try it on. But my particular evolution had a catalyst that caused me to have to search and really get to know myself. So that was actually a 7-year process for me, and I wrote a book about that. And I have found that when I go and speak and help people, it really helps everybody, male, female, but the women are the ones that really come up to me and say, we need to hear this and we need more of this. And I just think there are so many societal rules and assumptions and roles that define women that it makes it more difficult, I believe, for us to figure out what it is we want to do and where we want to stand. I believe in a 3-step process. So it's really first knowing yourself. I mean, Socrates said, how many thousands of years ago, know thyself. You know, and that's huge, and that's the first step. And once you know yourself, be yourself. So it doesn't matter what your parents instilled in you and your culture instilled in you. You might show up very differently than anybody else in your family, even though you were all raised by the same people. That's okay. So once you know yourself, be yourself. And then the third step comes very easily once you get those first 2 down, and that's find your voice. So, and I think so many of us as women don't go there. We might do the first 2 steps, but we don't really find our voice. And as Cheryl Sanford said, lean in. You know, we really do have to lean in and speak up and be heard and have some opinions. And if you don't think you have opinions, then you haven't done the first 2. So if you do the first 2 steps, you'll realize that you do have opinions and what those opinions are. And then just get engaged. So that said, those 3 things sound like they'd be pretty seamless and pretty easy to do. I know personally they're not. And so when you hit the hurdles and the pitfalls, and as I call them, those curves in the road where you didn't get the sign that said rocks falling or curve here, it's about resiliency and determination. So I was just telling this group that I'm teaching with this week, I said, you know, unless my back had been against the wall, I would have never developed nor known how resilient I can be. And now I don't know that there's anybody even as resilient as I am because of who I am and what I've been through and what I've overcome. So it's just everybody has their own story and their own pathway. But I think if you do those three things, couple it with having a passion for what you want to do and the determination and resiliency to stay the course, then you're going to be fine. And that's a great question too. I think what keeps most women from using the voice that we have is you have to also recognize your communication style. So if we're going to feel comfortable speaking up, and we're not really extroverted, then we have to have a strategy on how we're going to approach that and do that so that we get comfortable. And I coach with a lot of typically women who are in leadership roles, and it's about they need to be more assertive when they're at the table with their leadership team. And they say, but they're full of extroverts and I can't get my word in edgewise. So I work with them with a strategy on finding out, and they take ownership of this, finding out what it is we're going to discuss that's going to be decided in the moment at the meeting, what is the agenda, so they can pre-develop, you know, their opinions and have time to reflect and get their ideas together so that when they walk into that room and sit at that table, then they also have to take ownership and responsibility to carve out a place for them to give that input. So now they've already developed their opinions and their ideas on that, but they've got to make space for themselves. And they just have to make it happen to be heard. And even if it's just one thing that they contribute to that, then that's successful. It's kind of like there's different ways for people to network if they're extroverted or introverted. So you got to know what your style is, and then you got to know what your unique strengths are that you're bringing to the table so that you can formulate those opinions. Because you may say, well, I'm the brand new one on the team. However, I was invited on this team. I was asked to be on this team because of some sort of expertise that I have. And so what is that expertise? What are people expecting you to contribute? And what kind of, you know, filters should you be looking through this with? The most important life lesson that I've learned is to know your value. I mean, it really is. But you've got to know yourself. You've got to know who you are. So it's going back through that process and then understanding. Then you will understand what you'll be passionate about. I started out my career as a teacher. Everybody told me, my family and everybody, this is what a woman does, because then you can have children and then you can be there with them in the summers, and then this is great because then you have this career too. And by the way, you're not going to make much money, but that's not what's important to women. And when I got in that role, I loved the students, I loved the kids and teaching, and I loved my curriculum that I taught, but I didn't love the regiment, and I didn't love not making enough money. So that when I ended up alone at a time where I had to provide for my family, it wasn't sustainable. And so I had to give myself permission. And I did that through a values clarification exercise. My number one value, which completely surprised me, was personal freedom. And when I found that out, it was like my ticket. Yes, it's okay for me not to teach and go do something else. It's okay. And so once you can piece that all together, then I think you truly find the road to happiness. Well, I've written one book, and I do some speaking around that. I have another book that I'm in the process of writing called Soul Rising. And I'd like to finish that book, and I'd like to take it out in a bigger, broader way. What I do with Lumina and the assessment tools that we use are brilliant in that they don't pigeonhole you or stereotype you, so it really shows your unique value and unique strengths. And I'd like to take that to more people. And use that, because there's just such an evolution and growth of the personality, of the person, of the soul, and of the spirit. To me, it represents that we're stronger as we stand together. I am from the generation where women who did claw to the top and sit at the executive table in a corporation weren't too friendly and helpful to other women. There was kind of this preconceived notion. I made it and I have the secret, but I'm going to keep it. I'm seeing that change now, and I think it's beautiful. And I think this is the only way we're really going to change the world and really change people, is to understand that we need to help each other and pull each other up. And as we do this, the power of women in general, our voices are heard so much greater, and the talent and wisdom and value of all the women out there are starting to shine like we've never seen it before. And so I really wasn't sure we were going to see it during, my lifetime, and we are. And now my daughter and daughters, our daughters are really going to be able to ride that wave. They're going to really be able to step into their own power and strength. The title of my book is Step Up to the Plate, and it's the power of passion and determination. So it's just stepping up, absolutely stepping up, being present, being a part of the change, the transformation in the world.